Viewer discretion is advised.
Good evening, everyone, and welcome to a very special edition of the New to Wrestling podcast After Dark. I am so excited for today. We have a very special treat for you guys. This is our very first guest on the New to Wrestling podcast, and I could not think of anyone better to honor the inaugural spot on our show. This person is the co-owner, correct? Co-owner of the Suplex Vintage Wrestling store in Philly, the general manager of the Hardcore Cafe, if you will, the one and only Woody Kumetat.
All
How you guys
right.
doing? Thank you for having me.
Oh my God, this is such a thrill. Thank you so much for coming.
I even got the Hardcore Cafe shirt on right here. Yeah,
Okay, me too.
All right. I'm wearing the Friends and Family one. I'm sorry.
Okay,
Yeah.
no, oh my God, please. I was because before we started, we were talking, we were asking Woody how WrestleMania weekend went for him, because obviously Philly WrestleMania 40, I mean, this just massive undertaking, and he was saying he sold out a lot of his stock, but I was like, I had no problems finding mine, so I'm not worried, but thank you.
Honestly, I'm really pumped to be here, guys. Thank you for having me, and I'm over the moon honored to be your first guest. This is really thankful.
Wow, awesome. Oh my God,
well,
thank you. So I would like to dive into some personal questions just about who you are, the store, if that's okay with you. And then
Of course.
Woody also amazingly sent us 2 matches that he had us watch to like kind of get the flavor. And I guess I'll have you also explain like why you picked those 2 specific matches when we get into it. But I would love to know, first and foremost, are you like are you from Philly? Like how you came into this area, how the store came into this area, just kind of like so everyone can get to know you.
Yeah, I'm a transplant actually.
Okay.
I came to Philly 16 years ago. So
Amazing.
had this little idea of like stopping in Philly for a year or two and moving on someplace else. Happened to meet my wife. We have a kid, bought a house. I'm stuck here forever, and I love this place. I had no idea that Philly was going to become my home, but I never felt more at home in a city than I do in Philadelphia.
I love that. I feel like Xavier, that's similar to you.
Yeah, I grew up in Jersey most of my life. I actually only moved to the Philadelphia area in the last, I guess it'll be 2 summers now, because we're coming up on summer again. So yeah, so I'm definitely understanding the transplant life, where I thought it was just gonna be,
Yeah.
I like moved in with fam. I was like, I'll be here for like a second, and then 2 years later, and we're still trucking. So I
Man,
definitely
it's
understand that one.
when it gets your hooks into you, it's good. You feel like Philly's a great place to be, and I'm actually from a mountain village in California. So
Oh, wow.
I grew up in a 400 person village, really small, tiny little snowy place in the mountains, and so it's kind of fun to be. I've been jumping from city to city after that when I escaped that area.
That's
So I
awesome.
thought Philly was going to be one of the big cities on my map, but nope, it ended up being home.
Oh,
Love
I
that.
love that. That's awesome. And so 16 years in Philly, that's crazy. And I will say, when even every time I go to visit Xavier in Philly, there's just something about Philly, like the people there, the city, like it really does have this aura that is completely unmatched. And I think you said this sorry, I was like really going down a rabbit hole, looking into old interviews of you and stuff like that. So just preparing myself. Um, but I think that you said like Philly, whether they know it or not, is the home base for wrestling, especially like you said, whether they know it or not, especially on the East Coast. Do you still feel like that's true?
Absolutely. One thing that Philly has in abundance is passion. And
Mm,
I that's one
wow.
thing that drew me to Philly is they have this raw spirit and they wear everything on their sleeve. And that flows so well into wrestling because the
Mm-hmm.
whole point of the crowd being a participant in every single match is that we have to have this raw experience to to emote on the fly over and over again as the match goes on. And
Mm.
there's no one that does that like Philadelphians. I mean, we have this passion for anything we do where it's, if we hate something, we are going to tell you right then and there, that second, without any
Mhm.
filter, how much we hate it.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
And they need that. You need that feedback in wrestling. And that's how you get the give and take that makes things so special. And I think that's why this city is so important to wrestling and wrestling history.
Mm.
No,
Yeah.
definitely. And we've actually recently, in the episode that be coming out earlier this week, right before you, we watched ECW's first pay-per-view. So this was like it was
Fairly
Kelsey's
legal.
first time. Yeah, it was Kelsey's first time watching like any actual ECW content other than we watched the like the rise and fall of ECW so she can kind of get a general kind of gist of who these people were, but this was the first time she's seen kind of anything like it. And in both like watching the pay-per-view live and watching the documentary, there is just something so visceral about Philly fans, and you really see
Hmm.
it like when you're getting the feedback like as it's happening. And
Hmm.
it's just something like I'm kind of curious is like, do you feel like the like spirit of ECW is still like just as like prevalent these days as kind of back then? Um because we recently went to the shop and there was a lot of ECW talk just from other people like in the shop and just in the area that we're in.
Well, you nailed it with the visceral. That's a perfect word to coin, like that, how they feel about things. And I believe that spirit is absolutely still alive. And we kind of get ECW in a nostalgic way and a remembrance
Hmm.
of what was. And you hear these stories of people, oh, my uncle brought me there when I was 12 and
Oh
I saw someone get their head split open with a trash can. But like, be it good or bad, whatever it was, it stuck with you. And
hmm.
although we may not have that direct connection because there isn't an ECW for us to connect to,
Mhm.
you can still see that spirit come out whenever WWE is in town, or we go up to New Jersey and hit H2O, and
Mhm.
maybe a GCW show is going on. These local wrestling, whenever they come through, and I went and saw New Japan and Impact have a match at 2300 Arena,
Oh my
Oh wow.
God.
and that place was on fire, and so we still bring that spirit to anything there is, even if it's not ECW anymore.
Totally.
Yeah,
I
and it was
totally see it.
yeah, and we I guess like just in the same kind of vein, Paul Heyman's like Hall of Fame like acceptance speech. Did you get a chance? I'm assuming you did.
Oh yeah,
Um,
yeah.
and it's I've never heard kind of the spirit of ECW encapsulated better than of course by Paul Heyman. There's just you can really see that speech really like made a fan out of Kelsey. If Kelsey is
Yeah.
gonna
Not that I
buy
wasn't
anything
before,
that
but
Paul Heyman says, I think from here on out forever. Um, but it was just you could just really get a sense of how close to home that organization was and how much he prides himself on how ECW has kind of permeated its way like into pro wrestling in so many ways, whether it's like the actual wrestlers or the style that we've like grown accustomed to nowadays, or even just we're watching in the New to Wrestling podcast a lot. We're spending a lot of time in the Attitude Era and how
hmm.
you can kind of correlate the two, especially now looking back with the hindsight of it all, is pretty great. It's pretty fantastic.
Yeah, I mean, and the Attitude Era doesn't exist if it wasn't for ECW.
Right.
ECW is the one that pushed the envelope, that opened up that door for WWE to kind of dip their toe into it. And even with Paul Heyman coming over and his influence, I mean, Paul Heyman is obviously one of the most amazing minds in wrestling, and
Hmm.
a great story, not just because of his success, but also because of his failures.
Mm.
It is ultimately it's his fault that ECW failed because he tried to go too big too fast,
Mm.
and he let so many people down, and he turned his back on all these wrestlers, and he screwed people over left and right. He looked after himself, but then he had the redemption of it, that he didn't forget those people and he didn't forget things he did. And he spent the rest of his career bettering an industry to help all these people come back and get and make their money that they would have missed out on, and find different ways to interact with them and build up an industry just so wrestling as a whole is so much better. So he has this amazing like rags to riches to rags back to riches story again,
Right.
Hmm.
that is it's so inspirational, and you could tell from his speech, like, it really, we love it because it matters so much to him.
Right.
And that's the kind of
Mm.
stuff that makes you love something, when you can see that he's not just out here playing a character or out here getting a paycheck. Like, this is his passion, this is what he loves to do.
Right.
He
Right.
would probably do it for free, but he can make money, and he's not dumb. So
Right, right,
Right.
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 Totally. Yeah, I think in the documentary at one point, I think it's Vince McMahon actually who says it is like the fact that Paul like tanks his own wrestling company, but then continues to work in wrestling just proves to you how much he loves wrestling for what it is, like no matter what. And the fact that he did screw over so many wrestlers and he was still willing to like continue working to be able to go back and like try and make right and like make amends, like that's hard. Like to face a lot of people that you know you owe a ton of money to, that you know you screwed out of a job. Like that's crazy, like, and really hard to accept, but he did it. And like, it's just crazy. It's just the most wild, ridiculous thing.
yeah, you should read up on the Tommy Dreamer situation with him. The Tommy
Yes,
Dreamer was fully committed to committing some terrible, heinous crimes against Paul Heyman,
I
and
believe
it was
it.
like that close to being like the final standoff. But that's how bad things got. But you look at where he is now, and the respect across the industry that everyone has for him. It's amazing.
Yeah. So when did you get into wrestling? Were you a
Right.
kid? Were you older? Because like obviously we have the two perspectives. Xavier was a child when he got into it, and I am getting into it at the tender age of 30. So
I got into it when I was 6. Ultimate Warrior and just those classic, like larger than life characters. But for me, it was like Papa Shango
Mm.
when
oh,
he was making Ultimate Warrior, doing the voodoo chants and making him like bleed black tar and stuff like that. And it was something so mesmerizing about this bad guy that was so polarizing, and he stole all the attention and just doing so little. He could just be on screen breathing, and you were just like drawn into how scary he was as
mm.
a 6-year old. Um, and I think that's one thing that stuck with me. And I've been watching since then. My level of interest has faded in and out slightly over the years.
Mhm.
Of course.
And then I would say a big thing was my wife. When we started dating, I found out she liked wrestling. That kind of helped fuel it again in a way that was a completely different thing. Now that I had someone like I could share it with on a regular basis, and it really is like it was like an awesome moment for us. Our WrestleMania moments are like our favorite times of the year.
Right. Because true or false, you guys got married WrestleMania weekend.
Yep, WrestleMania 33 down in
That's
Florida.
awesome. That's
Oh,
so
that's
cool.
awesome. Congrats. That's a
And
fun, like
thank
every
you.
year it comes around again. You're like, oh, because my birthday is always around WrestleMania. Always like it's the 1st of April. So it's always in that like wheelhouse. So like
Yeah,
growing
yeah,
up
yeah.
when I was a kid, I was like, this is my birthday present. This is, and my parents totally just they were gonna watch it anyway, but they totally you're just like, yep, that's your birthday present.
We
There
got it
you
just for
go.
you. That is
Yeah,
so
we get
sweet.
the easy one. We don't really care about the date we were married. We just celebrated on WrestleMania.
Right.
That's just our anniversary. So I'll never forget. I get the whole lead up the road to my anniversary every year starting the Royal Rumble. It's really easy.
Oh my
Amazing.
God, that's so amazing. Speaking of WrestleMania, like just to jump forward a little bit, I was so amazed. I was talking to Xavier about this before we started, and like for me, again, because I'm new to wrestling, I'm always amazed by wrestling fans like predictions or like how they are able to see like what's coming forward. And I think that you did an interview right before WrestleMania 39. And you were like, yeah, we're on the road to WrestleMania 39, but really we're actually on the road to WrestleMania 40. Like everything in these last like few months, this next year, like everything is actually leading to WrestleMania 40. And like how on point you are, because WrestleMania 40 was larger than life. I mean, me again,
Hmm.
like new here, I've never seen a WrestleMania like hosted by so many outlets before and how huge it was. And I also know that you don't like Roman Reigns. And so I'm sure
Not
you
a
were
fan.
thrilled with the outcome of WrestleMania 40.
I could not have been happier at that, and also just the way it went down with
Right.
Oh my
the
God.
Cena coming out and Taker coming out, and like we were all there. Everyone from the shop was there. My wife, my son was there. We were all, just getting to share that moment. That's really what makes WrestleMania so special, is having those insane, memorable, like we'll never forget that kind of moment, and then sharing with the people that you like enjoy this with.
Hmm.
It was literally a once in a lifetime thing. It was awesome.
That's so cool.
And it
Yep.
also feels great to be right too. So
Right.
Oh, yeah, never feels wrong to be right, I'll tell you that.
That's amazing.
That's epic.
So I do want to ask about how Suplex Mania came about, because you guys did a whole event this
Yes, we
WrestleMania
must.
weekend. How did it come about? How complicated was it to pull it off? And is that something you guys are want to kind of recreate again, going forward with or without a WrestleMania weekend?
Yeah, I mean, I could tell you this. They announced WrestleMania 40 to be in Philadelphia, and the second they announced that, we were like, "Oh man, we have only been in business for about 4 months at that point in time."
Mhm.
And we were just kind of like, oh, okay, I guess this is really happening. We kind of had a 5 year plan to be like, maybe in 5 years we'll start a podcast and kind of get these things up and rolling. And as soon as they made that announcement, we're like, we got to start this now. Like
Mhm.
Yeah.
this, we got to speed up everything. And we started looking into closing off the street at that moment, about almost a year in advance. We're like, how do you actually block a whole street? And what is a permit to have a wrestling ring in the middle of South Street? And
Mm.
how like, Googling, like, how do you how do you book a match? You
Right.
know,
Oh
like,
my
had to start
God.
from scratch on everything.
Dang.
And it could not have happened if it wasn't for just amazing people in the industry. People from Labor of Love Wrestling here in Philadelphia. It's a local indie group. Drew Gulak and Catchpoint Wrestling, his school. He was able to loan us so many wrestlers to help us get our big battle royal just getting some wrestlers on the card
Mhm.
was such a huge
Yeah.
thing. Like, okay, there we have one match.
Right.
Now what?
Yeah.
And we just started calling all our friends, people that know that come to the shop, like Joey Janela and Nick Wayne, and we've
Mhm.
been talking to these people off and on and we're like, hey, what are you guys doing Saturday? Like, we know everyone's booked, we know everyone's in the city,
Right.
and as this momentum of just pure positivity, teamwork, and like just goodwill between businesses and friends, it came together so naturally, so organically, and I cannot imagine it. Like, I saw it happen, I saw it succeed, and it's still
Mm.
hard to believe that it went
Mm-hmm.
so well.
Oh my God.
The city of Philadelphia embraced it entirely. We were hoping to get maybe 500 people. That'd be a total win for us. There's about 3,000 uh, people down
Yeah.
there, and we had
Wow.
like Brauhaus Schmidt is a restaurant down the street. They like held our hand through the food and drink process and everything. All the, Anthony Deppen is a local indie wrestler who has his own beer company. He brought his beer in. It was just great. Everything lined up so perfectly. But it was about 9 months of planning before we
Yeah.
got to that point.
Oh
But
my
now we
God.
have an idea. So now we can do this. It's not impossible. So we've been looking at, okay, we know we can do it in Philly if wrestling's in Philly, but wrestling's not always going to be in Philly. So what else can we do? So we're currently in talks at looking at where like the big four for WWE is going to be this year
Mhm.
and what
Mm.
cities, and maybe we can do some sort of partnership with a store out there and do something along those lines in those cities. So like we're looking right now, looking in Cleveland for SummerSlam, and we're talking to
Whoa.
some people and seeing if we can do a big event out in Cleveland. We've been in talks with even people from London to see if maybe All In is a
Oh wow.
situation. So we go over there and bring Suplex on the other side of the pond.
That's
Uh,
cool. That's
That's
exciting.
so
crazy.
so we have some ideas. They maybe are too big right now, but that's
Hey,
how it
dream big.
starts. That's how Suplex Mania started. It
Mhm.
was a big dream that we thought, maybe we can't pull it off, but why not start here? And we hit it. So we're gonna keep doing that. We're gonna keep aiming high and seeing what we hit.
Oh my God. That's
Love that.
crazy and absolutely incredible. I mean, I can't imagine like the photos and the videos, I feel like just didn't even do it justice. I mean, it just looked absolutely epic. And closing a street in Philly, like closing a street even where I live, which is not nearly the size of Philly, is like such an ordeal. And like with the businesses and everything, like trying to collaborate and like work together and do all that stuff, it's such an undertaking. So I can't imagine it on that scale, especially with a wrestling ring and like people wrestling and things like that. Like it's not like you just have vendors. It's like it's a show
Mhm.
on just South Street in Philly. Like just that is so wild and absolutely incredible. Just so cool.
it's definitely like Chris Kindig is the owner, and he is the dreamer. That man has ideas on top of ideas, and this was all from his brainchild here of talking. And but what he lacks is the sometimes that organization. When
Mm.
you get 30 emails, so how to like, okay, who do I got to respond? How to respond to
Mhm.
them for that?
Mhm.
And that's where I'm the big nerd behind the nerds. Like
Mm.
I love organization. I've got that good like organization autism that made just like the superpower. Uh,
Mhm, mhm.
Work.
and so the combination of us working on this together really made something special happen. And I have no ideas. He's the idea guy. He comes up with all this stuff. I just try to make it happen. And but like I said, it was really so many people stepped up to help, and now we're in the same boat. All the things we're talking about, we're not doing any of this by ourselves.
Mhm.
We're talking to different wrestling promotions and different things like that to kind of partner up with people and do more fun things for Philadelphia or other cities coming forward.
So cool.
Yeah, that's awesome. Like I really wanted to. Kelsey was actually going to come down that specific weekend,
Mhm.
but I at the last minute was offered a chance to work WWE World, like the convention, the fan
Oh yeah,
convention,
yeah, yeah.
which was absolutely bonkers. And like you could really get the like sense because like I was meeting people from like all over the world who flew in like specifically for WrestleMania. And like like when you're watching it on TV like growing up, you're like, oh, like that's cool, but you don't like realize how many people like are actually like making whole vacations out of this. And you can really the sense in the city was just so palpable, just the excitement everywhere. When I was like leaving the convention center, just like walking around, just all of the WrestleMania stuff everywhere. It was just such a cool like feeling to be a wrestling fan and be like, my people are everywhere. My people are everywhere right now, which doesn't
Mhm.
really like it's like such a rare feeling when you're a wrestling fan. So it was really
It's
cool.
I think I remember talking about this on different podcasts or an interview or something. But when you're an Eagles fan, you have all these Eagles fans that you're friends with. You see an Eagles hat and you give them a high five. You're
Right.
instantly friends. But when a big game comes into town, like the Cowboys are in town, like we're not friends with Cowboys fans. These are people are now our enemy. They're coming
Mhm.
from out of town and we hate them.
Mhm.
Um, so when you get a wrestling event, it's like you see in with a wrestling shirt, you're like, this guy's awesome, nice shirt, high five.
Mhm.
But now you get an extra. I think they were saying it was around 200,000 people came into the city for that
Right.
week, and those we're all on the same team. We're
Yeah.
all
Oh
on
my god,
Let's Go
yeah.
Wrestling team. So you just suddenly have like 200 more people that were like part of your club, and yeah, and they said well, 10 to 15% of those people were from overseas.
Wow.
Mhm.
The amount of people I met from Germany, from Ireland, from London, we get to meet so many people from overseas. So like you were saying, they made a whole trip,
Right.
and WrestleMania was just a part of it. But it was also the key to it all, the
Mhm.
reason they made the trip, and it's really something special.
So cool.
That
That's
I
such a good
hope
point.
every major gets a city gets a WrestleMania at one point in time because it's so cool to see.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure, without a doubt. That is so true that everyone's on the same team, and I think we've talked about this before where it's like there's a lot of like closet wrestling fans where like when people like find out we have the podcast or something, they'll be like, "Oh yeah, I used to watch wrestling when I was a kid." And like you can just tell that they still watch it now but are like nervous to say
There's
that.
like
And I'm like,
there's
"No, like
more.
the safe space, safe space. Like we can talk about it now." Like there's a lot of like wrestling fans and I'm like, "No, like it's fine. Like let's
Right, right.
discuss." So to have WrestleMania where everyone is just like a wrestling fan out loud, like in a public space, like I also think is cool because like you have to I feel like a lot of times, at least me, like we have to like edge into wrestling conversations where it's like, no, like you actually know, like and that's fine. Like we can get there. Like it's okay. But I feel like WrestleMania weekend, everyone's just like, woo, like letting it go for sure.
Oh, yeah, it was great. You could just walk down the street and you see like random four people, and they'd be talking about The Rock, and you'd hear like a snippet of the conversation as they walk by, and you're like, oh, they're talking about The Rock. They're
Mhm.
wrestling fans this week. Maybe
Love
not
that.
always, but this week they're jumping on the bandwagon,
Exactly.
and I love that about wrestling too. No one gatekeeps wrestling.
Right.
Oh,
If you want to jump in and be a fan, okay,
so
great.
true.
We love that. Yeah.
Right.
No one's
The
like,
more the merrier.
You weren't here last month. Like,
Yeah, name
who
3
cares?
wrestlers. Yes.
Okay.
Okay, like,
Yeah,
That's great.
yeah.
it's
Can
a
we
great bandwagon.
Oh, for sure, the best bandwagon, because like, especially it's like there's also so much, for lack of a better word, lore, like, that you can really go into. Like, there's so much you can go into. Like, there's organizations, there's, like, certain matches, there's certain people that jump from organization. Like, there's, like, the Paul Heyman, Eric Bischoff, Vince McMahon. Like, there's the Monday Night Wars. Like, you can just there's so much lore you can also discuss, like, and go in so many
Mhm.
avenues. And, like, so to jump on the bandwagon where there's just, like, it's like Lord of the Rings. There's just, like, a whole map that I can just, like, pinch zoom in and, like, figure out what's that city
Right.
about. Like, there's just so many layers to it, which is great. It's like you can never learn everything about it, so it's just endless, which is great.
Also, thank you for combining two of my favorite things. You know,
You're welcome.
Oh, we're
I do
big
my
Lord of the
best.
Ring
yeah,
fans
that's
over here
Huge
also.
Lord of the Rings.
oh, nice. Okay, good, good, good.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. Can we talk about the genesis of the store? Because also, was it an actual vintage clothing store and then it made the switch? Okay. I would love to know about that because I find that so fascinating.
So I'd say it starts about 11 years ago when
Okay.
Suplex Sneakers opened up, and that was
Yes.
Chris's idea. Chris and Mike and a bunch of other people got together to the sneaker store, and I'm around, you know, orbitally. I'm a satellite to them. I've been in the sneaker industry a long time with them, and that's a bit, it's been a great success. It's been running for over 10 years. It's one of the best consignment sneaker stores on the East Coast. So about 3 years ago, we decided to get into vintage clothing. And this is a huge, it's right around the pandemic situation. That right before that, beginning of that, and it's going great. We actually in 2021 win Vintage Clothing Store of the Year in Philadelphia,
Crazy.
and we decide what should you do? You should shut it down because
So
we were
crazy.
noticing that it was just like what people wanted was the vintage wrestling. Yeah, we sold the Harley
Mm,
Davidson, and yeah, the band and the concert T-shirts, but it was 3 wrestling for every one anything else.
mm.
Plus, what we liked collecting
Mhm.
was wrestling because we all liked wrestling, and then we find ourselves watching on a pay-per-view on TV in the background anyway while we're doing work, and we kind of people came in and like they started watching wrestling at the store, and we're like, oh yeah, we'll watch. Sure, let's put this on while we talk about vintage clothing. And we got to a point at some point, and we're just like, can we just open a wrestling store? Is that possible? And you start looking around, and we're like, well, who does that? Like, there's got to be a model for that somewhere. And we find a
Mm.
wrestling store that's a comic book store that has wrestling, and oh, this store's a toy store that has wrestling. And we're looking, there's no vintage wrestling store in the world.
Wow.
And so at that point, we said, well, now we got to just pour ourselves into this to see, like, well, is this an avenue no one's tried before? Let's actually see if this is a thing. Maybe we're going to find out real quick why no one's done it, but who cares? Like in the meantime, it'll be really fun. It'll be a
Right.
spot where we can hang out, watch wrestling, and you can say create a safe space for wrestling fans.
Yeah.
Like I've always tell that I'll never end an interview ever without telling people like, you want to buy something, please come in. If you're looking for a shirt, I got you. But also, if you have an opinion of a wrestler that you got to just get off your chest, like I'm here to listen to that too. Like, yeah, when you want to talk about a match '92 when Ric Flair went from number 3 to win the whole Royal Rumble and Bobby Heenan called it from the jump. Yeah, I want to talk about that. I
Mhm,
love this stuff.
mhm.
And so does everyone I work with, and it's just such a cool, special place that it just so happened the right place opened up, and it just so happened the right people were available. And it's really just like it's kind of magic how it all came to be that we all are so passionate about this. And you go to work and it doesn't feel like work.
Mm.
We I don't regret or ever, when you wake up and you just kind of like got to drag yourself out of bed. Like, no, I hop right up, I head to work. I'll
Right.
go a little early and throw on a match that I wanted. I can get a chance to finish watching Raw last night. I'll put Raw on and watch that and sit down and come around. Everyone's at work just sitting down watching Raw. And then oh crap, we got to open the store.
Right.
Like
Oh my
it's
God.
it's beautiful. It's a dream come true.
Oh,
Oh, I
that's
love that.
awesome.
I'm like, It's totally
um,
fine.
so you guys also produce a couple podcasts out of you guys really like it's like a jack of all trades kind of place.
Oh yeah.
So how many shows do you guys produce out of there, and how did those come about? Or was that kind of more just after you found out WrestleMania was coming, we were like, we got to get the ball rolling?
Well, it's the thing we always talked about. We kind of always had these ideas, in as listen, anyone in their 30s or 40s who, has a beard, I feel like needs to have a podcast. That's the old Jack thing right now. But
I'm working on mine right now.
We'll get there.
we got to the point where like we sit down at least for 2 hours every week and discuss what we think is going to happen, what's going to happen. I'm like, why don't we just record it? And we
Mhm.
did. We recorded. I can't tell you the amount of episodes of our podcast we recorded that will never see the light of day. So we recorded probably 20, 30 episodes. And we're just
Wow.
like, oh, that's not for anyone to hear. That's fine. Well, like the format's not right, the sound's not right, but damn, was it fun. Like, let's
Mm.
just get some mics and keep going. And we got to a point where like, this isn't that bad. Let's try it. Let's record it. And that started the SVW podcast. And that's been a lot of fun. Like I said, just getting a chance to actually go out there and make predictions and say the crap that you want. I got some strong takes on people I don't like, and
Mhm.
getting to say that, having a platform to say that is really nice for me.
Oh,
I hope
totally.
people like it as well. And then of course we kind of had some other ideas like the hardcore happy hour where we had a
Love that.
couple more of our nefarious individuals that work with us, and they have smoke a little, drink a little, and then watch some ECW, and that one gets a little bit more unfiltered. uh,
As the subject matter would
I was gonna say
lead
that's
to.
very apropos for the material, the source material.
Yeah,
Has to
but
be.
Mike and JA are really fun, and like JA is just this fountain of knowledge of wrestling. He literally loves it and grew up with it, and it's been Philly his whole life. Went to all these ECW shows, and Mike is hardcore. Mike's a great dude and is very unfiltered in wonderful ways. And then we run into these situations where there's some kids that have been coming to the store since we opened. They're my absolute favorite, Max and Sam Gilman.
Mm.
Um, their dad brings them in every once or twice every week, and we would just talk wrestling.
Mhm.
And these kids were sharp. They know everything. They watch everything, and they're so opinionated that we got to the point where we're like, "Do you guys want a podcast? Can we just record you?" And as of right now, they're my favorite thing we do.
Love
Uh,
Yeah.
that.
Max and Sam, if anyone's not listening to Grappling with the Gilmans, give it a listen and realize that like I hope that when these kids are famous, they just remember us. That's all I'm hoping at this
Right.
point, because they're the most like charismatic, enigmatic kids I've ever met. That's insane. They're awesome.
That's
Love that.
awesome. Yeah, I think that's so cool. Like especially like you said, you created such an amazing home base for like people of all obviously ages, creeds, who enjoy wrestling. And first of all, the names of the podcasts are amazing. Hardcore Happy Hour is hysterical. And even the idea of like talking to kids who love wrestling, especially because like we said, almost every wrestling fan I know is like, yeah, I started watching when I was a kid. And like these are the kids who are starting to watch wrestling and like will most likely be lifelong fans, like whether they obviously dabble in, come back out, like, I think that's genius and awesome and just lighthearted and amazing. So I love that.
So fun.
I always hope people see that as that, because that really is it. It's not. I don't want anyone ever to look at that podcast and think we're trying to like do something like exploit these children for our
Mhm.
wrestling thing. Like these,
Mm.
we give them zero notes. We let them say and do whatever they want, because people are like, oh, these guys don't actually watch wrestling. They're just like reading a script. And I'm like, no, I wish I could tell these kids what to say. You should
Right.
hear them argue. Whatever they say on the podcast, you should hear them argue with me in the store.
Oh my
Right.
God.
They're very strong opinions from children, and it's amazing.
I
And
love
now
it.
I actually told them about your guys' podcast, and they're doing something with like the 8-year-old. Max is the youngest, where they're having people write in and tell him a match he should watch, and he's
Love
going to
that.
review some old match, so you get like an 8-year-old's point of view.
Amazing.
And he breaks it down like move by move.
Mm-hmm.
Oh my God, I
It's
love that.
really funny to see this. Yeah,
Oh,
That's
that's
epic.
fantastic.
That's awesome. I love that.
you guys are inspiring another generation as well.
Oh
Hey,
God, that's
but
scary.
listen, well, the whole point was we wanted people to, at any point, if you're new, come hang out, come
Come
watch
join
with us,
us.
because I love a rewatch. And a lot of the stuff that we're watching, like, I was so young when it like first came on that I like have either forgotten or made up what I think happened. So it's
Hmm.
also fun just being like going back over things and be like, oh right, that did happen. Then you're like, right.
Yeah,
Um,
So just seeing it with eyes now, like your perspective is so different now
right.
as an adult versus when you were a child, and you're just like, oh well, that's that. I feel totally different about that situation.
Right. Yeah. We there are many a moment where we're like, ooh, that one wouldn't happen today, but we're gonna just keep moving. We're gonna keep
they
moving.
keep it moving.
lots,
Yeah,
lots of
there are
that.
so many times where like we're watching something and I'll be like, "What did you think of this when you were a kid?" Because as an adult, this is like just beyond. And he'll be like, "I don't even know. I think I just took it in. Like I'm not really sure." But yeah, some of my favorite moments are when we both are watching something and he doesn't remember like the outcome of something, and we'll both be like, "What?"
Right.
And I'm like, "Did you know this was gonna happen?" He'll be like, "I guess, but I don't remember." And then we both like freak out.
So
So
fun.
so fun.
Um, I did want to transition into the matches that he that Woody has kind of
Yes.
provided for us.
Oh yeah, for
Um,
sure.
so the first one is Taz versus Bam Bam Bigelow at Living Dangerously in 1998. So why did you choose this one? Why did it stand out for you? And kind of, yeah, just why we bring this one to the table?
So these guys had a series of matches, and both of them, like Bam Bam, is known for being a stiff worker. Like
Ooh,
he was not a guy you were going to be able to casually get in the ring and just kind of like, I'm gonna do my set, you do your stuff, and like we'll walk out. Like, no, you're gonna know you wrestled Bam Bam when you're done with this. Like he was a big man, he hit hard, and you had to really work. And then you had someone like Taz who was going up against him, and that man had the chip on his shoulder at all times.
yeah.
Like he was going to leave receipts with every person he was with, and he had that kind of like that small man syndrome, where you could
Hmm.
tell he just was like a little bit more angry than he should have been. And that match to me, it just kind of showed how they let workers do their own thing in ECW.
Hmm.
And they kind of
Mm.
those you could tell those guys both kind of probably got together before the match and said, "Hey, we're just gonna beat the shit out of each other.
Oh,
Like we're not gonna pull any punches here. We're both gonna hurt like hell tomorrow, but like we're gonna leave it all out there." And the brutality of that match, without it being gimmicky,
right.
where it wasn't like, oh, I gotta have a barbed wire this and chairs and glass and all. Like no, there was just two people, two warriors, just battling, and then with one of the best finishes in
Oh,
my mind in the history of wrestling. Just when you're watching that live and you didn't know that was going to happen, that's that moment you're standing up, you're out of your chair, you're like, did he just go through the ring?
yeah.
Yeah.
Like such. It's a near perfect match, and it's such. I love like a Will Osprey, flips and this
Hmm.
and the dance and poetry of it, and then I love this, which is just the sludge and the gladiator, and it's like it's that back to that visceral word we were talking about earlier. It was something just so real about it.
Oh, that like T-bone like Tazplex that he does where he's like throws Bam Bam like off of the apron like into the crowd, and like all the while Taz's neck is just smacking the guardrail and you're like, Jesus, man, that's crazy. Oh, it
I
was so
yeah,
good.
I think what I love about ECW too, that this is like a total sidebar, is like the ramp is elevated, like it just goes right into
Hmm.
the ring, and so the ramp really comes into play. And
Hmm.
so which I love, because also when you're suplexing someone from the ramp, like you're gonna see it because it's like up like eye level with you. And so that's just crazy. But it's this was perfect because we just watched like in the documentary them talk about this match. And so we started watching it and I was like, this is the one where they go through the ring. This is the one where they go. I was like, oh my God, I'm so excited to see this. I like could not believe it was like perfect because we just talked about it. And I was like, God, I gotta watch that. And then I was like, this is the one. Oh my God. I mean, That it is one of the most wild things. Like you said, even there's one point where they're on like outside the ring and they're like fist fighting, and it legit they're just like actually punching each other.
They're
Like
just
they're
wailing
not
on each
That's
other.
what I
they're
mean.
just hit, and like Taz is screaming like hit me, and he's just punching him and you're just like, my God, it's so crazy. It really like I'm sweating thinking about it. It was just so wild. And
Right.
when they go through the ring and everyone is just like everyone's
The
reaction
gasp.
is so genuine and
Yes.
it's just so unexpected,
You
so
really feel
brilliant.
the
And then
air just
just
like get pulled out of the arena. Like you're just like, and
and
you're,
then and then when you see Bam Bam just basically dragging Taz's like lifeless body
mm-hmm.
back out of the hole so he could get the pin, it's and that led to more matches that
Right.
with other great finishes. Like I mean, it's where Taz actually gets him in the Taz mission, and he's Bam Bam's crawling for the ropes from the entrance ramp, and it helps set up so many things too, because that actually had a great feud back and forth, and Bam Bam Bigelow's a personal favorite of mine because he's one of
Mhm.
those like big dudes that could do it all back in
Right.
the day. The kind of guys that would get
Yeah.
showcased now, but there wasn't a spot for them back then. So
Mm-hmm.
he was kind of like a
Mm.
sideshow and what he and his freak agility with his size, not to mention that head tattoo. Uh,
Yeah, oh my
Right.
God.
but
Crazy.
but yeah, so that's this really to me was like it was a good show of what ECW could bring that wasn't just the gimmick. Oh my God, look at all the blood and violence kind of match. Just like the true like the heart of wrestling
Right.
for me.
Love
Yeah.
that.
That's I mean, and also it was in Bam Bam Bigelow's hometown, so it's a hometown hero kind of thing. And I think it's funny that you say that because I didn't really notice that there was like no blood, guts, gore, like whatever. And not that I don't want to see it because we always want to see it. And we were talking about how like you watch an ECW match and if there's not enough blood, like the crowd is screaming like we want blood, we want blood. But I think they're just so engaging and incredible. And like you said, just like a gladiator match that
Right.
they don't care like because it's just it's so amazing in and of itself. You don't need the gimmicks, you don't need, and there were like chair shots, of course that's just classic. Chair shots, there was like
Yeah,
one
yeah,
table
yeah.
thing, but like Taz suplexing Bam Bam Bigelow into a table is I was like his spine is gonna just like snap, like that's just impossible, like that
Right.
can't happen. But it's just like a feat of the most incredible physical wrestling that you didn't need the gimmicks and things like
Right.
that.
I think that was the trade-off is like what they lacked in like like overt violence, like they made up in like physicality. So
Yes, exactly. And it left like no one left there feeling like they missed out on
right.
Oh
anything. And they also found a way that like a match that tells a story during like just with a story with violence.
Hmm.
They really made you feel like these two guys hate each other and wanted to end this thing in the ring right then and there.
Hmm.
And like
And
that no one was going to tap out.
right.
No one was going to give up at that point. You're going to have to like someone's have to be drug out of there
yeah.
if
Right.
they were going to leave.
Hmm.
Yeah, I mean, like the one EMT came out with a stethoscope as soon as the match was over and was like checking Taz's like heart rate. I was like, I love this. I love like how far they go. Like they're gonna really wheel him out in a stretcher. I'm so into it.
As if Taz would let them.
Oh yeah, please. Oh my God,
Yeah.
like so great.
So our next one that we have is Rey Mysterio Jr. versus Psychosis at Bash of the Beach in '96. I am curious as to why you picked
I was gonna
this
ask this
this
too.
one out of all of their kind of classics because they have as was
Exactly.
like alluded to during like the match itself, like they feud everywhere. They feud in Mexico, they feud in
Everywhere.
Japan, in ECW, WCW, and even
They're
WWE, like way down the line. So what was it about this one in particular?
So it's a two-way street. It's one for another we to put another shine on ECW because they have done this in '95. They did this in ECW as well, and in a much more violent style match.
Hmm.
And I don't think it was even a pay-per-view. I think it was just a part of their TV series. And one thing I loved about ECW, we talked about the violence, we talked about all the stuff they did, but they also did where they gave people a chance. They gave a Mexican legend and a Japanese legend, and they put them on TV and let them entertain people. And no one was taking a chance on people like Rey Mysterio and Psychosis yet. And ECW gave them a platform. They showed up and they showed out.
Mhm.
And then we see them on WCW, so opening up pay-per-views. So it was a cool thing where ECW actually helped give them that step to get to the mainstream they wanted to be. And they did that for so many people. I mean, the amount of people that came through ECW before they made it big with Guerrero and Benoit and Stone Cold, all these people that came up at one point in time had a stop in ECW as well.
Mhm.
And you know that like Heyman had that shine on people, or he would send them on their way. So I kind of wanted to pick this one in a sense of I feel like this was their true moment where they got to put to a national audience of what they could do. Because Bash at the Beach was one of the biggest pay-per-views at the time. And
Right.
that one in particular is one of the most that's rewatched because it is the one where the NWO forms.
Right.
Yes.
That's the Hogan's the third man and they come out and it changed wrestling history.
Yep.
So I feel like that pay-per-view is so important to anything. And they had the moment to start it off.
Right.
And you can tell at that time, they didn't even know what half the moves were called. The announcers were calling out things and
Yeah, it was just
guessing at
Mike
what stuff
Tenay and
was.
everyone else was just fumbling.
Yeah, even Tanay's like having a little trouble keeping up. And then, and it was such a chance to really show the whole world this different style of wrestling. And I will say that was the style that got me. That was a style that absolutely hooked me, and I became a WCW fanatic at that point. And luchador style and technical wrestling became everything to me. And I grew, and at that point, I became a huge fan of Ultimo Dragon and Eddie Guerrero, and even back there, Dean Malenko, Chris Benoit, Chris Jericho. Like these guys became my favorite wrestlers.
Yeah.
And it was really like everyone like the Hogan, all that stuff was cool. That was fun. But that was all flash, no substance. And I realized it was the substance that I craved.
Right.
And that's still to this day kind of what leads me towards my wrestling path. And so much of it. So this is almost a nostalgic pick for me, where I will tell you this is the match that I have seen more than any other match in wrestling history. I have sat down and watched this so many damn times.
Right.
It's one of the first matches I showed my son when he got into wrestling. It's the amount of times I put Bash at the Beach 96 on at the store is probably annoying the other people that work there. So this to me was just kind of like a good roundabout way of like, if you're teaching someone all the joys of wrestling, make sure they see this side too.
Right.
And get that good love for that lucha technical styling. And these two were just masters at it.
So crazy.
Yeah,
I will say, I feel like, oh, you go.
No,
you
go
go.
ahead.
I was gonna say, I feel like that's what draws me to at this point is the technical. Like when we were talking about like just like the springboard moves that people do. I'm like, how do they do like just like run, jump, like flip, do like that? The technical wrestling is really like at this point, in like the beginning of my like love for wrestling is like really what also has hooked me. Like that, just the ability, the how they're able to do it is mind-blowing to me, and it is what that style that like keeps me coming back for sure.
Like for me, whenever I like described it specifically like WCW, it was always like I was always very into Sting and then like the undercard. Always. And it very much like in the same vein, like all of the people that interest me, like when they ended up going to WWE, I was like, oh well, I guess we're done here. Like because as soon as we hit like 2000, like the Radicals came over, I was like, well, here we go. So
oh yeah, Saturn was amazing in the
Saturn.
Radicals.
Oh
yeah,
Saturn was in part of the Eliminators. Yeah. Okay.
Yes, I did. Yeah. Total Elimination.
Oh, she was a big fan of Joey Styles.
God, I love that man. I love that man. No one works harder than that man. No one knows more things, more moves. We were joking because every move for every wrestler has 14. Like the T-bone Tazplex. Like everything has like such a specific name for each wrestler. He knows every single one. He never fumbles. Like he's on point. Like he was the best. He was just incredible.
Solo is what's like most impressive. It's just like they just left him alone.
Which I couldn't imagine being out on an island like that, just like being it's just me the whole time. Okay, here we go.
And he's doing like interviews, he's like got the mic and he's over here, then suddenly he's on the table like commentating, then he's like he is everywhere. And just like it, and he doesn't even look like it bothers him. He's just like, now I'm over here. So what? Like, I don't know.
Right.
Like, there's just something about him that really gets me. And he literally looks like someone just yoinked him right off the sidewalk and put him there. Like,
Right.
he
It's
doesn't.
somehow just unflappable.
Yes, I love that guy. Sorry, go ahead.
No worries. Did you have any other big questions? Because if not, I think we can wrap it up, right?
Oh, well, really quickly, I just want to talk about
Oh,
how
hit me.
insane the match was because, like,
Oh yeah.
I've never, I the luchador style always blows my mind because they're so quick but so on target. Like, I know that sounds like a very basic analysis, but that is legitimately how I'm just like, they're like heat-seeking missiles. Like, just I was in the middle of the ring, now I'm on the top rope, now I'm flipping here, and like I think I think that it's Rey Mysterio who does the Hurricane Rana like off the top, and Psychosis is on the side and like flips him like onto the floor. I just
Yeah.
Yeah.
why
And
am I
even
okay? Like, I don't know. Like, it's just so amazing.
even
Just
by like
beyond.
luchador standards, like Rey Mysterio was doing things that they couldn't even keep up with.
Exactly. Young Rey Mysterio was pulling off moves that literally like he was doing things and you're like, that was the first time that was done.
Mhm.
And he did that so many times where he
Right.
was like, well, people had talked about it or they done a variation of that, but like a hurricanrana from the top rope to the apron thrown over, like that wasn't being done.
Mhm.
And it was because he had that amazing chemistry with all this work he had with Psychosis.
Mm.
And also, I feel like Mysterio gets so much credit for this over the years, but like Psychosis was an amazing dance partner
Mhm.
because he had that lucha style, but he was also very big and very strong.
Right.
Mhm.
For a lucha person, he was not your like little tiny flippy guy. Like he
Right.
was actually a big dude. Like, his power bombs
Ooh.
in that match are brutal. You know,
Right.
and you
Vicious.
see him, he literally takes over the match almost in a very like ground style, you know, where he's just overpowering him and taking out his legs and hurting him. And then you think like, oh, that's what it's gonna be, but like no.
Mhm.
Rey Mysterio comes right back and it's off the rope and it's springboard this and it's roll through. It's got everything you want in a match, and to me at least, maybe my nostalgia might make me a little biased, but
Mhm.
Another one, it just for you, Kelsey. Rey Mysterio, Eddie Guerrero, Halloween Havoc, is another
97,
one,
yeah.
that where Rey is just absolute. Well, they're both showing out, but Rey particularly pulls out some moves like never before seen. Where you're just like, and hearing them, like you hear them talk about it in interviews like after the fact, and Ray's like, I don't even know how that came about. In the moment it just happened. And that's what's like mind blowing.
Well, also you get that when you have two people that trust each other implicitly,
Right.
which was amazing with the way
Mm.
they had that camaraderie and on the road for so long. And they had this thing where like, I know that I can go nuts and flip and do whatever, and that person's going to be in the right spot, catching me correctly, so it
Hmm.
looks good and we're both safe.
Right.
Mm.
And you don't get that when you just kind of like, oh, introduce these guys, you guys gotta go have a match. Like
Right.
that comes from years of working together,
Mhm.
and that's with the technicality of it. You can do that crazy stuff when you have these sound technical wrestlers because they're going to work safe. They're going to keep everyone in it and make it look the brutal way we want it to look, but while
Right.
also they can still come out and do it again tomorrow.
Hmm.
Mhm.
And that
Mhm.
match, of course,
Yeah,
yeah,
totally.
'97. That one of the best outfits of all
Oh
time, Rey
yeah.
Mysterio in the Phantom get up. It's iconic.
Okay, I need to see that because I am
Don't
all
Yes,
worry,
you
I'll
about
do.
show
the
it to you. I'll
fits.
show it to you.
Okay, thank God. That's
I
like
can't give you two Rey Mysterio matches in one. You know, that's too
yeah,
much.
of course. But yeah, like I'm all about like the costuming too is so amazing. The fact that they use the music to create that connection. Like it's so fascinating to me. I just love the whole thing. Um yeah, so I definitely have to see that for sure. We have to watch.
Oh yeah,
It goes
I'll
right
make it a
into
point.
the ladder match like, for the custody of Dominic
Oh my
is right up
god.
there with it too. You know,
Yeah.
just amazing storytelling, everything.
Yes,
Not the
the Dominic
custody
Mysterio
battle,
that's around today. That one. Yes.
which they had okay. they had I think I've already asked you this before, but they had like the crazy like father son like
Feud last
storyline.
year, and then
Yes, for
yeah.
WrestleMania.
Hmm.
Yes, that was wild.
Definitely.
At
Yeah.
that point I wasn't watching wrestling the way that I am now. And so again, like we said, WrestleMania is always Xavier's birthday gift to himself. So I drove down to Philly to watch it with him for his birthday. And like when they do like they just kind of do like the highlight reel of like the road to WrestleMania and like how we all got here. I was like, are they serious? I was like, they're the father and the son. What? I was
Right.
like, the mom is spitting on the son because it was the most insane storyline, like just to observe from like me knowing nothing. I was like, did not just drag the mother out of the front row to yell. I was like, what is going on? Like, it was just so amazing. So that's hysterical. I can't believe he was involved in a custody battle ladder match.
Yeah.
Can't wait to see that. See, there's just always more. There's always more pockets to find
That's the
yourself
lore.
in.
That's the
The
lore you were
lore.
talking about. Yeah.
My God, that is wild. I'm just like, it just never ceases to amaze me, the storylines that they come up with. Just
Oh yeah.
fascinating.
Oh, and
Thrilling.
we're only at the tip of the iceberg.
I know we're not even like really, because I've seen like little tidbits of like the actual like when we're really in the thick of the Attitude Era, and I'm like, I don't even know how
Yeah,
much more I can take. I'm gonna have to
we got a
start
ways to
taking.
go. We're only in 1997, so
Yeah,
we got to hike.
yeah.
But yeah, all right. So thank you so much, Woody, for coming on, being our guest, and providing some matches for us. Just because I think we're gonna make that kind of a tradition with any guests we have going in the future. Just give us some matches and we can kind of dissect them.
You were the blueprint.
Yeah, I'm like I said, honored to be part of this. I think it's an awesome idea. I think it's really cool. I can tell you, we got during WrestleMania, we got so many emails of like, could you do this? Could you do this? And you guys 100% stood out as like, this is a really cool idea, and I
Thank
really
you.
Oh
like what you
wow,
guys are
thank
doing
you.
here. I'm very happy to be on. Thank you guys so much for having me.
All right.
Thank you.
Well,
And we hope
thank
you come
you.
back someday, because that
Yeah.
would be sick.
Yeah, let me know.
I'm in the area, and if you guys are in the Philadelphia area, make sure you guys stop at Suplex Vintage Wrestling. It's at 628 South Street. And they're typically open noon to 6 most days.
Noon to 6, closed on Mondays.
Oh,
And
me too.
everyone in there is super great, super willing to just talk about wrestling, point you
Nicest
in the
people
right
ever.
direction. So yeah, so thank you so much for coming on. If you're in the area, definitely check out Suplex Vintage Wrestling, and we'll catch you next time.
We'll see you there.
Bye.
Bye.